All right, so now we've moved on and we want to do some mashups. Now, what is a mashup? Essentially, a mashup is two or more songs that are combined into one coherent track. A track that you might be able to give to your friends and play on their iPod, and they're only playing a 4-minute song. They're not playing an entire DJ set. Because essentially, you should be doing mashups, live mashups throughout your whole DJ set, but you know that'll be an hour, 2, 3 hours long. And it's not something someone can just pop in their player and just listen to their favorite little mashup. And I'm sure you're familiar with mashups. You might have heard, you know, like a Michael Jackson, maybe Thriller instrumental with somebody else's vocals on top, something of the sort. And there's a few different ways you can do this. We can do it on the computer, which we'll talk about shortly, or you can do it here on your DJ console. And once you get good enough at the DJing, this is a perfectly good way to do it. On this particular one, I would throw a USB in here and I just hit master record when I'm ready to start the track. And if you don't have something like that, you can plug into your computer and record with a line in on something called like Audacity, which is a free software. You could also use Audacity or something like that to do your mashup, but we'll talk about that when we get to the computer. Now for here, I have taken, I've pre-selected a couple songs. They're harmonically compatible, although they're not in the same key. So I have a song in E minor and a song in A minor. And you'll want to definitely make sure you're paying attention to the circle of fifths or that Camelot wheel to be able to choose songs that work well together to do this function. Otherwise, they won't sound like they belong together, and it'll be an obvious, horrible mashup. So we have two tracks, and I have one that I'd call the fundamental track. I'm going to throw on some headphones here, and we'll let you hear it. So this is an Armin van Buuren song, and I'm going to let this play out from beginning to end. While this is playing, I would hit record, you know, before the first beat. I'd play the first beat, and then I'd go here and I'd add some instrumentals and such from track 1, which sound like this. This ain't no love song. It's just and that is called Summer Thing. So I want to drop some of these vocals onto this track, but to help them blend a little bit better, I might add a little bit of reverb, maybe some delay or echo. In this case, I chose echo, and I'm actually going to do 1-beat echoes. So this is what this sounds like with 1-beat echo. This ain't no love song. It's essentially all I'm going to be doing. So check this out. So I'm going to make sure I'm introducing on phrases, keep the whole phrases and bars and beats in consideration when you're doing these things so the songs fit well together and it sounds like it could have been done from the producer who originally made the song. So here we go, the end of a phrase, 7, 2, 3, 4. Besides, I had my volume down. Let's do it again. I decided to jump up to 2 beats. And then you go on and on from there, just decide what, do some pre-planning. I just grabbed these really quick as an example. But yeah, do some pre-planning, get an idea of what works really well with other things, do some mixing maybe on your DJ stuff. And once you're like, oh, wow, these 2 tracks work really well together, you can then, if your DJ skills are tight enough, produce your own mashups on your units, or you can go to the computer, and we'll do that now. Let's go to the computer and I'll walk you through that a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, let's work over here to the computer side of things. And you'll see I pop back up Rekordbox, and a lot of times when I start a mashup, I do it this way. Maybe I tagged some songs while I was performing, or I just had some inspiration and I just felt like there's two songs that might work well together. Either way, I'll go into Rekordbox. This way I have a clear indication of the BPM of each one of the songs, the tempo, and I also see the keys, which is really, really useful because you want to pay attention to that, harmonic scale, and make sure the things that you use in a mashup are harmonically compatible. For the best mashups, you'll want things that are even in the same key. So let's just go ahead and I'm going to play through a couple tracks here. So there you go. It's like a tribal. There's some drums and stuff going on. And let's say I wanted to, find a couple other songs that this might work with. I might find another one that I use for the second drop. So, the first drop here might be this Tropic Q track, but I want another one that's another tribal track that's also an F minor. I'm going to work my way down the list and listen to a couple other F minor songs. I know this is actually a tribal track, so let's listen to it. I think those two would work really well together. And if you actually look, there's 128 on the dot. They're both F minor. And that would be super easy to do a mashup because I don't have to worry about fluctuating the pitch or anything. Although you can do that quite easily. I'm going to show you in a minute that that's possible. But let's say you wanted to add a third song in. You might want to find... because neither one of these really have that prominent of a vocal, so maybe find an a cappella that works really, really well with these. Or I go to another genre that you might not necessarily think of working that well with these, or you might not expect. So I'm going to work in here to my electric or electro swing, excuse me. And I'm going to dig through here. It's okay, I have a track at 125. It's also F minor because I'm going to stay in the F minor realm. It's called Jungle Dance, and let's listen to that. If you want your soul to free, let your voice and sing with drive, lose yourself and get energized. Get energized. Get energized. Let your voice and sing. And you might be able to make something really cool out of the three of those songs. So at the next point, what I do is, I just literally drag and drop them into the program that I use. I prefer Logic Pro, but that's just me because, I also produce. You don't need anything this expensive or extravagant. You could use GarageBand that comes free with MacBooks. You could use Audacity, which is the free program I referenced to earlier. And that's completely free, very useful. And you can do essentially the same kind of thing. So in this song, I wanted to show you one that was, already finished because, this can take anywhere from, 15 minutes to an hour to do, a couple hours if you really want to add some original elements to the mashup. But essentially what I did here is I got three different songs. These are two instrumental songs, and then I found an a cappella that I really liked, Aftershock by Dev, featuring Dev. And then I did a few extra things. So between these three tracks, even though there's only, essentially three sources that I had here, you can see I cut them up a bunch of different times. And I placed them and organized them in a way that I thought made sense. Both of the drops are a little bit different. The breakdowns are even different. But I copied and pasted some of the songs multiple times. So let's go ahead and I'll solo, for instance, the acapella. And this is what the acapella sounds like. This feels familiar. I remember this. So you have a verse here. You actually have a chorus as well. And I do, a couple little effects. We'll zoom in here. And it literally cuts off there. But I copied this track. I duplicated it. And this is where, you manipulate the samples that you have, whether they're, acapellas or drum loops or, 2 or 3 complete songs. You just chop them up and manipulate them in a way that works well with the other tracks. Maybe something that might be a little too hard for you to, perform in a live setting. Then the computer's a great place to do this because you have all the time in the world to flesh out a perfect sounding mashup. And so I took that one sample, I duplicated it, and this is what it sounds like now. And you can hear a few things going on there. It's literally just the same little loop. I just, made a couple little cuts here. I did a breaking effect, so it sounded like a turntable stopping. I pitched it down in this section. So it adds some variation, and it's got a lot of production quality to it, where you can tell, when it's cut up this nicely, there's got all these little stutters and stuff. You can tell it was done in advance, but that's what makes a good mashup a great mashup. Is you can share this out on like SoundCloud or whatever sources you want on your social medias. And if it's a really good mashup, you might get lots of people downloading it, and even a big artist might even use your mashup. And it's a good way to get your name out there without having much production experience. This is a really good way to break into kind of the production side of DJing. So there's the vocal itself. Then I'm going to zoom back out here, and I'll show you this first track. This is the instrumental, and I use it for like the intro and the outro. And then I guess that's what the drop sounds like. And that's all from the same song. You see I just cut sections out here. This is going to be the second instrumental song I used. So there you go, like that a jungle terror kind of tropical drums sound that I use in a lot of my stuff. I found a way to blend it in for the two songs. So this very first drop, rather than getting too far into the very first instrumental and been like, okay, the first half of the song he did nothing to, I decided to go straight from this build-up of this track into the very first drop being from another song. At that point, people realize it's a mashup. Something else I did is I actually duplicated another version of the acapella here, and you can see just some random fades and breaks and such going on her vocal, and that's what this sounds like. It kind of fades out. And then I got a vocal from one of the songs, a little sample that says, "Are you ready?" And this is what that sounds like. I cut that up a whole bunch of times.
Are you ready for the drums? Are you ready? Ready? Are you ready? Ready? Are you ready? Ready?
So you can see that's just cut up a bunch. And then I finally have these three tracks here. I call it sweeps 1, 2, and 3. And literally all it is sweeps, downlifters and uplifters. So this is what it sounds like. Downlifter. Ooh. And these guys. So if I put everything together, this is what I turned this song into this. And just having that fade there, a little bit of the vocals being really subtle right there, immediately you can tell it's not the original song, so it's got some, remixed or mashup elements to it. But eventually it gets a little bit more prominent, like here in just a second. And then, the mashup's underway, and we have lots of fun.
Are you ready for the drums?
Then I also got another vocal chop that I did here, actually, that I didn't show you. It's like, drop. And I actually cut out this little break at the very end of this phrase, and I dropped it in there, so I'll let you hear that. And this breakdown originally sounded like this. So you can see it's really cool. It's impactful, but there was no no acapella on it originally. It just was kind of dry, and that's what I felt made that song a really good candidate to be mashed up. So now this is what it sounds like with the acapella on it.
Ready for the drums.
This feels familiar. I remember these steps. Oh, break me down, pick up the pieces. You're dangerous. I know.
And so on and so forth. And yeah, so this is just one example of what you can do. It doesn't have to be this complex. It can be more complex. You can, play around with production a little bit, and maybe you add your own instrumentation in a couple little spots, so it's got almost a little remixy element to it. But it's really easy. It's lots of fun, and the great thing about the computer is there's really no pressure. You have all the time in the world to figure it out. So anyway, get out.